Hi there, this is Chris jumping the cap, Motolegends. We're going to talk today about a new version of the Schuberth C5 helmet. It is the C5 Carbon. Here at Motolegends, I have to admit that we are not big fans of carbon helmets, and that's partly down to the fact probably that we just don't get involved much with racing and sports bikes. But also it's because we don't see many advantages with carbon helmets. Of course they're lighter, but you'll usually pay a huge premium to save maybe 100 grams or so. And on the road where we don't tend to generate much by way of G-forces, we don't see that adds much. Now some people assume that because MotoGP riders and Formula 1 drivers wear carbon helmets, they must be safer and more protective than composite ones. But that's simply not the case. Carbon helmets are lighter, that is all. And so when we were first offered the C5 Carbon from Schuberth, we weren't particularly excited. The idea of selling somebody a helmet that costs twice as much but adds nothing in terms of extra functionality did not sit well with us. We're just not comfortable with suggesting that somebody would be better off with a carbon helmet because in our view they normally wouldn't be. But we have come to the view that it's not for us to get in the way of somebody who wants to buy something. As long as that person knows what they want, that's going to be good enough for us. So if you really want a C5 Carbon, we are going to have it here in the store and obviously online. We will never in the store upsell anyone from a standard C5 to a carbon one, but if you decide that you want the C5 Carbon, that's good enough for us, so be it. Anyway, let's go back and talk first about the standard C5. The C5, in other words, this helmet has been on the market for a couple of years now, and it is in a different league, I can assure you, to its predecessor, the somewhat disastrous C4. This is a good helmet. People seem to like it and bits don't fall off it. It's comfortable, it's quiet, it doesn't fog up unduly, the comms facility works brilliantly and so on. The most disappointing aspect of the helmet is still our difficulty in getting a perfect fit with it, and it's not helped in that by the fact that it only comes in 2 shell sizes, whereas a premium helmet would normally come in 3 shell sizes. As a result, there is a huge gap with the C5 between the large size and the extra large size. And unfortunately, the different thicknesses of liner and cheek pads cannot make up that gap. So if you measure your head, if you're about a 59 or if you're at the top end of 59 going into 60, you may have a problem because the large size, which is a 59, if that is a little bit too light, you're going to find that the size up, the extra large, is going to be simply huge. We do, nonetheless, applaud Schuberth for introducing liners and different thicknesses of cheek pads for the first time with the C5. But the fact that they only offer them for 3 out of the 6 sizes seems a little bit strange to us, and it's a little bit disappointing. As is the fact that the most important single liner, the thicker 25mm cheek pad, has not been available from them for over a year. It makes one wonder if Schuberth really is taking custom fitting seriously. And with Schuey about to introduce their computerized personal fitting system, it really looks as though Schuberth could be left out in the cold in this respect. This aside, the C5 works. We've had a few, I suppose you might call them very minor quality issues, but nothing that concerns us. If the C5 fits you, it's a very good helmet. As a company, Schuberth doesn't just make motorcycle helmets. They produce helmets for the military, for the emergency services, so the fire brigade, for example. They supply helmets to the police and so on. But Schuberth is particularly proud, and rightly so, of its involvement with Formula 1. Indeed, they supply helmets to the current Formula 1 wunderkind Max Verstappen. There are only 4 companies in the world who are qualified to supply helmets to Formula 1, and Schuberth is very keen to point out that the C5 Carbon is made by the same people in the same facility that supplies its Formula 1 drivers. And I suppose it is indeed impressive that one can buy a helmet in the shops that is made by the same people who might have made, for example, Max's helmet. Each helmet is made by one person, and it takes about 4 hours for them to take the carbon strips and to mould them into the mould to create the shell before it goes off to the autoclave. Given the technology involved, the expense of the materials, the time involved, the price is perhaps not surprising. If you pay, for example, an extra £100 merely to get a graphic on a Shui or an Arai, then an extra £500 to get a carbon helmet perhaps doesn't seem unreasonable. But I think we come at this from a slightly different argument, or from a different angle. Our question is, what do you get for the extra £500? What do you get from an £1,100 C5 that you don't get, for example, from a £500? And I think the answer really is not a lot. In the medium size, the C5 Carbon weighs just 1,460 grams. And for a 2206 accredited flip lid with integrated comms, I think that's pretty astounding. That's some 200 grams less than the standard C5. Of course, whether this is going to make any difference at all when you're out on your GS is another matter. Remember, nobody is pretending that that the carbon helmet is a more protective helmet. Nobody is ever going to admit this, but I think one could be confident that C5 Carbon is going to be a tad noisier than the standard C5. And then there's the issue of torque distance on the comms. If you're never going to use comms, it's not an issue, but if you are going to use comms, there is an issue here. Now, Schuberth state quite optimistically, in our view, that the torque distance on their comms with a standard C5 can be up to 2 kilometers. My view is that would be 2 kilometers in the desert. But because the carbon shell acts as a barrier, the torque distance on the C5 Carbon is quoted as just 700 meters. And for some people, that I think will be the clincher, because if Schuberth are claiming 700 meters, one could be fairly sure that in most circumstances it's going to be 200 or 300 meters. And for a lot of people, that's just not going to be enough. Yet, it cannot be denied that the C5 Carbon is a work of art. The way that the carbon panels are laid shows a level of craftsmanship and a mastery of this particular art. The helmet does, it has to be admitted, look beautiful. It's a very impressive bit of kit. And if that's important to you, then go for it. Why not? I'm aware that at times here at Motolegends we can be a little bit puritanical. Don't really know why. We all spend money on fripperies from time to time just to make ourselves feel better in some way, even though we know that there's no functional benefit in that purchase. Life would be dull, let's face it, if all of our decisions were based solely on rational criteria. And Rolex, of course, would never sell another watch. I suppose we might sometimes take ourselves a little bit too seriously here, but we like to make sure that our customers know the score. We will never try to sell somebody something that they don't need, which is why we have never been particularly keen on carbon helmets. But if you want a C5 Carbon and you know why you want a C5 Carbon, that's fine by us. And if you want one, you should probably buy it from us, because I'm not sure that many other people do custom fitting on C5s, and certainly nobody's doing it for free in the way that we do. And of course, if you're spending this kind of money, you really do want to make sure that this helmet fits properly. Well, I hope you found that interesting. If you'd like to see more flip lid helmets, then visit the website motolegends.com. If you'd like to learn more about the C5 Carbon, then if you click on one of the links on the screen, sometimes they're up there, sometimes they're down there, that will take you directly to a dedicated page on the website. When you're there, you can check out the spec in a little bit more detail, you can check on availability, and obviously if you want to buy one of these helmets there and then, you can do that. When you buy from us, we try to make the process simple, straightforward and risk-free as we possibly can. There's no delivery charge on any item of protective wear that you buy from us. Returns are totally free, and what's more, we give you a full 12 months in which to decide whether you do want to return something to us. Now, we have the best price promise in the business. John Lewis was rightly famed for its never knowingly undersold price promise, but we go one stage better. If you can find anyone selling anything that we sell at a price that is below ours, we will beat that competitor's price by a full 10%. Now, there are a few terms and conditions associated with what we call our price beat. Nothing particularly onerous, I can assure you, but if you are going to attempt to price beat us, I suggest you go over to the website and check out what those terms and conditions are. If in the future you'd like to receive bulletins from us about new products, then if you go to the website, at the top of every page there's a piece of script that says newsletter sign up. Click on there and within seconds you'll be in business. Alternatively, if you prefer to get your information videographically, that is to say in this form, we'd be simply delighted if you want to become a subscriber to our YouTube channel. I'd like to make mention finally of our fabulous little shop here at Motolegends. We're based about a mile from the centre of Guildford, a mile from the railway station. And as I've suggested, it's a small shop, it's got a small footprint, but it's attached to our warehouse where we have some £5 million worth of stock arranged over 3 floors. Technically, that makes us the second largest motorcycle apparel shop in the UK. But we like to think that we are far more than just the amount of merchandise we have here in the building. We're all about service, we're all about personal fitting. If you want to check us out, visit Trustpilot. We have the highest 5-star ranking in the business. And when you come to see us, we'll serve you only the finest Italian illy coffee, or we'll serve you proper Yorkshire tea in a proper teapot. And who knows, if you're lucky, you might even get to sample one of our delicious motorcycle-shaped shortbread biscuits. Anyway, this has been Chris. I hope to talk to you again soon.